Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with Hernando County Extension Service, and I'm back this week. I've been gone or kind of on and off recently, and today I'm here with my two co-hosts, my two main helpers, the ones who take over when I'm not able to be here. Colby Pitts, who's the Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator, and Bernie, who is our Master Gardener who knows a little bit about everything. Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm doing well.
So, this show is for you, not you guys, but the viewers. So, if you have any kind of lawn and garden questions, you're curious, you're having problems with your turf grass, your vegetable garden, just had a gentleman in here asking questions about finger limes. Finger limes are a thing. It's a type of citrus. So any kind of lawn and garden questions you might have, just go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll do our very best to answer them, or we will at least discuss them. Good morning, Bassem. How you doing? At least somebody's on here with us today. So how are you guys doing? Are you both keeping busy? I know that anything to do with extension, once we start to get close to spring, it just gets crazy.
Oh yeah, I'm getting a lot of calls. In Hernando County, there's a lot of people building houses. There's a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
then there's also a lot of like companies and stuff building houses, but people are installing ground cover and turf right now. Um, and I've gotten several calls over the last week or so about people. I had one this morning calling about they put down perennial peanut and asking about how the uh, watering exemptions work for them. So if you don't know, if you in Hernando County, if you we're under 1 day a week watering, and if you install more than 50% of an irrigation zone with new plant material, there is an exemption, and your watering schedule changes for the first 60 days after you install it. And I'm getting a lot of questions right now about that, and we have a really handy calendar that shows our recommendations for watering that new plant material. So I've been sending a lot of those out, handing a lot of those out.
Yes,
That really is a good thing. The people that sell sod tend to tell the consumers to water it every day for as long as you can, 2 months. Water it every day for 2 months. And people do that. And of course, when you stop after 2 months, this grass or lawn is so used to being watered every day, it starts gasping. You can actually hear it going. So, uh, the schedule that you guys put out is fantastic in that it explains you water it every day for a little bit, you water it every other day for a little bit, and you slowly wean it off. And
Hmm.
uh, everything is much happier if it's done that way. So the guy that sold it to you said, water it every day, forever and ever. That's not a good thing. So uh, that your schedule really works great. I've passed out a lot of those, and
Hmm.
I appreciate it. And like so much of the stuff you do, it's in print and it's available and it's free. So uh, you know people ought to take more advantage of some of these things.
Oh, for sure. We also, so it's funny if I hand a lot of them out at events and stuff, but so many like the people who call me. I mean, I even have it in like a PDF thing, so it's like I send you a document, they look at it there too. So it's really, I think it's really important to have those resources in more than one format.
Had
and we
a
actually have a question here. So Bill asks, I will have to redo 10% of my lawn in the hell strip. And he's probably referring to no man's land, that little strip of grass between the street and the sidewalk. And it's a fairly narrow area. I'll give everybody one little tip, one little bit of advice here. A lot of times when they build neighborhoods, they put live oak trees in that little strip, and it's only less than 10 feet wide. And that oak tree looks great when it's about 6, 8, 10 feet tall. 10, 20 years down the road, when it's a really big oak tree, it will make your curb and your sidewalk pop up, and it will be very expensive to cut down and replace that or repair that sidewalk. So not a good idea to put oak trees there. But Bill has to redo some of his grass there. What are my restrictions for getting that area going as far as watering restrictions? And Bill, I assume that you're in Hernando County, because if you're not in Hernando County, I mean, we can tell you what to do here in Hernando County, but if it's another county, we don't. I'm not an expert on every county's rules.
So here, watering rules wise, since that's not like you would not be able to run automatic irrigation on that spot. But if what you described in between your sidewalk and the street, that's small enough that like I think you can reasonably do that pretty well with hand watering. So you would hand water that as needed, because we don't have a rule against spot treatment. You just can't do it in the middle of the day as normal, but after 8 and before 6 p.m. you can't water in that window. So as long as you're doing it outside of that middle of the day window, you can spot treat it with like hand watering.
You know, if you're going to water, it's always better to water in the morning and let it dry off during the day. If you water it at night, especially in the summer when it's nice and hot, as soon as it seems to get dark, fungus grows like crazy. So you're much better off if you don't have the lawn wet during the night. The sun keeps it dry, keeps the fungus down. Just whenever possible, water as early in the morning as you can, and it's better for the lawn than watering late in the evening.
Yeah, and if you do have your entire lawn replaced, like Colby said, there is an actual list. We should have the handouts here at our office about the schedule that you're allowed to follow. There we go. That's it. Yeah. The schedule you're allowed to follow while the grass is getting established and rooted. Don't water it and set your irrigation on full mode several times a day, because you will run up a hellacious water bill. I've seen people and talked to people who ran up $1,000 water bill. Mm-hmm. $1,000 will buy you a lot of water. That's a huge waste. New grass does need to be kept fairly moist and watered lightly on a regular basis to get it to root and keep it healthy. It doesn't need $1,000 worth of water. That's ridiculous.
3/4 of an inch of water provides enough water to a depth of 12 inches. So, if you're watering a new lawn and the roots are only a couple of inches long, there's no need to water to 12 inches every day. Water it so that the soil is saturated, and then 1/4 of an inch of water every day will keep that top couple of inches happy.
Mm-hmm. So with I'm not really familiar with what he's referring to there. I do know that the county ordinance says that spot treatment and watering, if it's not done by an automatic irrigation system, must be targeted manual means, which I take that to mean you have to be like doing it yourself. So that's with a self-canceling spray nozzle, and it can't be everywhere. It has to be at a specific area.
The drip hose wouldn't be practical for a lawn normally anyway, but drip hose works good on your landscape plants. So
because I know we're trying to move on real quick, but not to those low flow irrigation, the drip hoses are you can water those on any day. Actually, they are not that the watering exemption, or restrictions don't apply to those in landscape beds. So that is something to keep in mind because they are so efficient and they don't use very much water. I know that and I'm going to check the ordinance here just to make sure, but those are highly recommended for your landscape beds instead of shooting them with your automatic irrigation.
And please remember, all this information applies to Hernando County. Each county is going to be different with their watering restrictions and the days and how often you can water. All the rules are different everywhere, just to keep things good and confusing.
The question on what type of turf do you recommend for partly shaded lawn?
Yeah.
Depends on how long it's shaded. The truth is none of the grasses do well in the shade. So if we're talking like under an oak tree, probably grass is not going to ever be happy there. So there are some ground covers that grow in the shade, and might be better off to use a ground cover instead of grass in those areas.
Yeah, because shade is relative. It depends on exactly how shady it is. A little bit of shade, grass can grow and do fairly well. The shadier it gets, the thinner the grass will get. And if you're talking about underneath like a large oak tree and the tree is very thick, it has not been thinned or pruned at all to let any light come through, and it's very dark under that tree, the grass will be very, very thin and you'll see a lot of bare dirt. So shade and light is all relative, really.
Asiatic jasmine are one of those type of plants that grows in the shade and is happy.
That'll cover the dirt. That's a good ground cover. And Bassem asks, can we grow olives in Central Florida? And if so, what varieties? Yes, you can. And hopefully Teresa is watching and tuning in. University of Florida has a lot of information on growing olives. They've been working on that crop for a number of years. Around the world, there's literally hundreds of varieties of olives, and they've gone through and they're basically checking all of them to see which ones grow well in different parts of Florida and which ones don't. And they have lists and information on which varieties are going to produce the best here in Central Florida. So why don't you guys answer a question or two, and I'll go ahead and look that one up and share it in share the link in the comments here.
Well, 20 years ago, we recommended that you not grow olives. Olives are a Mediterranean climate plant for the most part, and the olive varieties that initially were tried didn't do very well. The humidity was not good for them, but there's varieties that appear to do quite well now. It's amazing, when you've got thousands of plants to choose from. Some of them do very, very well here. And of course, the thing with olives is you can't just pluck them and eat them. They don't come off the tree like they come out of a jar. So if you have some way to process them or have some way to extract the oil, it's a pretty neat plant. They're actually a beautiful tree.
They are.
Got one of the customers out on the east side of the county that lined a driveway with olive trees, and it's gorgeous. It's just a pretty looking plant. So from a landscape standpoint, it's probably underused on the varieties that do well here.
It is. I had to go a while back and look at somebody's palm tree in Silverthorne, which is a neighborhood here in Hernando County. And I looked at the palm tree, and then also in their yard was an olive tree. I said, oh, wow, what beautiful. It's kind of a silvery, grayish green leaf color. Very, very attractive. Very nice shape also. I said, what kind of tree is that? They said, it's an olive tree. And I looked closely, and it had olives on it. They said that was the first crop they had gotten. But you can't pick the olives and just eat them like you would from a jar or a can. Doesn't work like that. You have to go through a process.
Be really, really bitter, like just terribly bitter.
You have to, what is it, brining?
Yeah, brine.
You have to brine them. I can't help you out with that. You're going to have to look up how to brine olives online. It's okay. We've been doing it for thousands of years. I'm sure you can find good information on how to go about doing it if you want to, but most people will squeeze them and press them just to get olive oil from them.
You know, get somebody that moved here from Greece or from Italy, and get them to explain how to handle all the little intricacies of olives. They're really a neat plant. I like them.
And Anne Marie lives up in North Florida. She recommends Arbequina, which is a variety of olives. And remember that there are types of olives that are best for table olives, although you will have to brine them, and other ones are better for pressing oil. I assume that the ones for pressing just have a lot more oil in the actual olives. And I did share a link to University of Florida information here on growing olives in your yard and different varieties. And going back to growing turf grass in the shade, Anne Marie says azaleas love it under oaks, and that is true. That is where azaleas do the best. They like that speckled sunshine that comes in through oak trees. They don't like full sun in your brand new, newly constructed neighborhood with no trees. Azaleas will not do well in that environment.
Well, don't azaleas also like or that rather maybe not like, but they can handle a little bit more acidic soil, and don't the oak leaves kind of
They
bring
require
the pH
acidic
down?
soil. So
Yeah,
So here in Hernando County, if you live in Hernando Beach, most likely your pH is 8.5, which is quite high. Azaleas will never grow in your yard. That's way too high for azaleas, way too high for camellias, blueberries, and a few other things.
it's really hard to bring your pH down in your yard. It is almost impossible. I think if you have something like an oak tree that's mulching, that mulches leaves, that might lower it a little bit, but I don't think it is that super drastic change that you would need to grow a plant like an azalea in Hernando Beach.
Yeah, it's really hard to lower pH long term. So you could use sulfur or garden sulfur to lower the pH, but it's only going to lower it for a few months before you have to apply more. So if you're trying to grow an azalea and keep the pH lower where it's growing using sulfur, you're going to be applying a lot of sulfur. Then you're going to get sulfur toxicity in the soil. You're going to end up adding too much over time.
Going back to the sunlight requirements for grasses, St. Augustine probably has the lowest requirement. There's varieties of St. Augustine are happy with 4 to 5 hours of sun. So if you have less than 4 hours of sun, you probably should even forget about grass. That is the cutoff point. So
Yeah, you're going to have to look at something else, some type of ground cover, mulch, squeezing in caladium bulbs. If where you're growing it, there's soil. I know a lot of times at the base of a large oak tree, there's just not enough soil to plant anything in there. But caladiums and mulch will work in a shady spot. So there's options.
bromeliads,
Not grass.
put some bromeliads in, some mulch. You know, a lot of neat things you can do. Had a lady call this morning, and she's got a camellia, and it had one beautiful bloom and hundreds of buds. And she went away for 2 weeks, and she came back, and there's one bloom laying on the ground, and all the buds have disappeared. They're not laying on the ground, and the leaves are okay. They haven't been touched, but the buds mysteriously disappeared. Unfortunately, that's squirrels. So if you have problems with your camellias losing all their buds, disappearing, and they look like they've been dropped, but the ground's clean, you need to do something about the squirrels.
I never knew that. See, I learned something today.
I found in that in the ordinances I was looking just now, low volume micro irrigation, which is your misters, soaker hoses, things like that, is not restricted by the day of the week, just the hours. So for people in Hernando County, that is a great option, for watering your flower bed specifically. Because none of those are really going to work for watering your like turf grass, like your actual lawn.
Yeah.
But watering your flower beds, that's a wonderful option, and it's such an efficient use of that water. It's all getting to where it needs to go. We're not, it's not you're not watering the street or anything, and it's very targeted.
I used to use that for my citrus trees. I had a couple 100 feet of those things, and the problem I had was that there's so much crud in my well water that they would get plugged up, and you'd have to uncap the end and flush them out, and then they'd run for a day or two, and then they'd quit. And then after they started doing that, it would get to the time would be less and less and less, and finally all the holes are plugged up, and you can't flush it out anymore, and you'd have to replace it. Well, the hose is only lasting a couple of weeks. It wasn't worthwhile. So if I had your fantastic, clean, good water that you sell, I'd have been in Fat City. But with well water, probably most places in the state, those soaker hoses are not going to work well.
It's kind of crazy. So I've lived on well water most of my life. One of my really, but the last place I lived in Sumter County, I was on well water, but that water had a bunch of crud in it. It smelled like pennies when you turn the shower on. But the place before that, when I lived in like downtown Webster, we had we had citrus trees with all kinds of pipe, and we did all kinds of stuff with them, and we never had any issues. The well water was really, really clean. It was really nice. It was like you drink it out the tap and you feel good about it, which I could do now because I'm on county water, but I wouldn't drink the tap water that I used to, and that really hard, nasty tap water I had in Croom.
Yeah, I know micro irrigation can plug up. You do need to check it, make sure that everything is operating, because the lines and the little holes in the sprinkler heads are really, really small. It only takes a little speck or chunk of something to plug it up. So you just have to check them. But when it's running well, very, very efficient. And we got a couple comments here. Lynn says gingers do well in dappled shade, and that is true. There are probably hundreds of varieties of gingers. Bernie, that about right?
Yeah, and there's some really beautiful gingers. That's one of those things that you can pick the height, you can pick the flower, you can pick the color. It's a great landscaping plant, and they're pretty much underused. They use like the pine cone ginger or something like that. Real common, and then all the rest of the gingers tend to get forgotten. But that would be a really good landscape plant.
Yeah, and they do well in the shade or dappled shade or speckled shade underneath oak trees. So that's another option. And most of those you could put in a container if you want to, and fill your shady spots with containers.
I'm a big fan of bromeliads, but unfortunately, bromeliads hold water, and they tend to have problems with mosquitoes. I don't seem to have that problem, although I may have, but I do have a fair number of bromeliads, and most of those prefer the shade, so they do very, very well. I've got a couple areas, and cast iron plant is another one that likes the shade. Peace lilies like the shade. So there are a lot of plants. It's just that a lot of them tend to be tender. So if you get a frost, you're going to have to do something about it. If you're just a little farther south from here, you could probably get by with those things. Hernando County, you probably need to either have them potted or realize that they're going to die back, and you're only going to have them for 7 or 8 months out of the year.
Yeah, most all gingers do die back for the winter. That's totally normal. You just cut it back to the ground in the early spring, and then they're going to grow back in the spring and grow through the summer. So I see Teresa put a link to bromeliad fact sheet in the chat. And Bill asked, should we observe the average last frost date before laying new sod or putting in plugs? You don't have to. You can put down sod whenever you want. Home builders, when it comes time to put down the sod
They're
goes
gonna put down
down.
that sod. Yeah.
They're
The
not
the
waiting 6
absolute
months for closing. No. When the
the
time comes
absolute best
time for
time
sod, they put it down.
for sod though is in June. Let God water it for you. So
Take advantage of that natural rainfall if we're getting a lot of rain, so you don't have to water nearly as much. Sally says that she uses filters on your micro sprayers. That really does help, and I would think that if you're doing it off of well water, you'd really want to have some kind of screen or filter on there to keep the individual heads from plugging up.
Mm-hmm.
David asked an important question here. Are all gingers edible? And we already got one answer to that. No. The edible ginger is, I think, Zingiber officinalis. And I see Teresa is a step ahead of me. She already put up a link to the edible ginger fact sheet. So there's one type of ginger that you can grow to get the edible roots from. The other gingers, I don't know of any of them that are toxic or poisonous, but they're kind of things that you probably would never want to eat. So not all gingers are going to give you ginger roots that are edible, but they don't do flower. And the edible one flowers also. So it's ornamental. And in the fall, you can, if it grows really well, makes more roots, you can harvest some of those roots for eating.
Isn't with ginger, isn't it like the ones that are really, the flowers are really like showy and colorful? Aren't those the ones typically that you don't like to eat? I don't remember where I heard that, but I think it was the ones with really showy flowers are like, yeah, those are, you want to leave those alone. And
Yeah, the prettiest ones are generally not the edible one. Although the edible one does flower, it's probably not what most people would consider the prettiest flower out of all of them. And Lynn says she has butterfly ginger, spiral ginger, the shampoo ginger that makes the pine cone looking thing that you can squeeze and use as shampoo, dancing lady, and the edible. So a lot of different types of gingers out there. I know people who collect them. They'll, if they have a very shady yard, we have a master gardener with a very shady piece of property. He has a lot of really large trees. He collects gingers. He's got a whole bunch of them out there, all kinds of different types. And here's some official information here. So true ginger can be distinguished by shorter stalks, which are 2 to 3 feet high. Ginger has narrow leaf blades, yellow-green flowers, purple tips, and it's the rhizomes or the roots that you're going to eventually harvest and peel the skin off of and make use of. And Bassem points out turmeric is very similar. The leaves are shaped differently from edible ginger, but to the untrained eye, it looks pretty similar. And cardamom, which I'm not that familiar with, I've never tried growing it before. I need to look into that. I'll put that on my notes here. I need to look into that one. They're also from the ginger family. So they're all related, but not every ginger is something that you want to be eating.
well, don't they have they call it wild ginger, but it's not actually ginger, and it's I think it's toxic. Like if you eat it, it's got another name, but I think it's like colloquially called wild ginger.
Yes, we don't recommend going out in the woods and eating whatever you see growing or laying around.
Unless you really know what you're doing.
Know for sure what it is.
It can mess you up
before you think about eating it or putting it on your dinner plate.
Acerums. Some acerums, not all. I guess some of them are toxic.
And that especially goes for mushrooms also. Be very, very careful with the mushrooms. Please keep in mind here in Florida, we have a huge number of species that grow here, and a lot of them look very, very similar. And you may have one tasty variety and another very toxic variety, and they look really, really similar. And you better be really sure before you go picking them and eating them. It's different in other northern states. They have fewer species to pick from, and it's easier. So don't go picking mushroom walks here in Florida with people who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And do not bring mushrooms to the extension for identification. We will not identify a mushroom. That is one of the things they have a big prohibition against it. If we tell you it's bad and it's good, you're unhappy. And if we tell you it's good and you die, you're probably going to be unhappy.
Then we're all unhappy.
Yeah. So we do not identify mushrooms. We used to get a lot of people that would come by wanting to know if these mushrooms were psychedelic. And we actually sent a couple to the university, and the university came back and said, we're not supposed to identify this mushroom because it's psychedelic and they don't want us to tell anybody. So
yeah, we can't help you with that.
Okay, we understand how that game's played.
Now, if it is a mushroom that somebody accidentally ate, or your child may have eaten or did eat, or your pet did, we will take pictures of it. So we need the actual mushroom, or we need good pictures from you. And University of Florida has Dr. Matt Smith, who's an expert at mushroom identification. I will forward that to him. We're more than happy to do that for anybody. And he is the mushroom expert, and I will go with what he says, because I am not the mushroom expert. I love mushrooms, but I love grocery store mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't like any
very good for you, too. Very, very healthy for you.
And their compost is great for growing things.
Mm-hmm.
I like looking at them. I think some of the kind of exotic varieties of mushrooms look cool. I think fungus is neat in general.
Mm-hmm.
But let's if you bring me a mushroom to eat, I'm gonna tell you absolutely not. Get out of here.
Yeah, if you bring me some mushrooms to eat, I hope they're in a package wrapped up and they came from the grocery store. And there we go for everybody. Teresa shared a link. Mushroom expert Matt Smith. I know prior to Dr. Smith, we had Dr. Kimbrough. And when I was going to University of Florida, he taught me mycology. I took his mycology course. And he, oh my gosh, he had been with University of Florida since the 60s or 70s. He had been there for a long time. What a wealth of knowledge. He had forgotten more about fungi and mushrooms than I would probably ever learn about them. So we do have experts, and in their area of expertise, we let them answer those questions.
Dr. Kimbrough wrote the book on Florida mushrooms. So if you want a book on Florida mushrooms, buy the Dr. Kimbrough's Florida Mushrooms. It's a great book, good read, and he is was very knowledgeable. You're absolutely right. I love that man.
Nice
shout out,
real nice.
Dr. DeBecker at the University of Central Florida. That's the mycology class I took. Super knowledgeable.
Leave the mushrooms to the experts.
Yeah. I'll let Dr. DeBecker do mushrooms.
But Sam says false cardamom is great for Central Florida. We use the leaves to flavor our food, and the real cardamom is hard to grow in our area. I'll make a note of that on my note here. I'll look into that.
I'm amazed at the, you put something out and these people come back with all kinds of information. There's a better wealth information out there. Maybe we should let them be on the screen and we can sit back and take the class.
We got some smart viewers here.
We do.
And it's, it's such a, if you're talking about plants in general, there are just so many things, or there's so many different disciplines, even with inside of just plants. like our knowledge of plants is cultivated as a society that we all know. It's like there's way too much that one person could ever know it all. So it's really important, to share what you know. If you do know about something, you're pretty knowledgeable in it. Share that because there's somebody else who knows all kinds of things that you may not know.
Yeah, and there's days when I feel I just don't know much. So, Anne Marie asks, "Are the shampoo gingers invasive? I want some." I know that they're not invasive, and up in North Florida, I can almost guarantee without looking it up, they're not going to be invasive. They may possibly be listed as invasive in South Florida. Things are different down there. The shampoo gingers, if you plant them in a clump and they're happy and they do well, the clump over time will spread, but it won't spread far and wide and head into the forest and the woods and the neighbors' yards and go crazy like that. So you're safe with them. And we got a comment from one of our viewers in Pennsylvania who's currently in Florida. I don't know where she is at the moment. I'm assuming she's still here in Florida. Ms. Lily Browning says, "Colby, I saw blooming Kogan grass this past weekend on Highway 33. Yay."
So last week we were talking about how it spreads and how it's for a long time. I know that I heard in the past that it doesn't. It's only it's only the rhizome fragmentation. It's not, but it blooms. It blooms, and you just don't see it super often. So Highway 33, that's like south of Groveland, north of Groveland, runs north and south like through Mascot, up to like Leesburg, I think. But that's any of those natural areas. I actually saw some too on Ayers, in Hernando County, heading back towards like Dade City area. And I was like, huh. I took a mental note, and I was like, well, there it is.
Yep.
So Kogan grass does bloom. I think it bloomed. The timing must be different in different spots because I've seen, if you Google Kogan grass and you see all these pictures of it, a lot of the pictures are in bloom. Meanwhile, I've only ever seen it in bloom a few times, but I've seen a lot of Kogan grass. So I wonder that there must be some
not blooming.
Well, I think it has to do with the weather. See, we haven't had the frost, so we've had an extended growing season. We've had more than a year growing season, which normally we don't get. So things that would, if it takes 10 months before the Kogan grass would flower, it wouldn't normally get 10 months here. We lose a couple of months because of the frost, late frost in April. We didn't get them last year. So we've had a really long time. And a lot of plants that weeds in your lawn that don't normally flower are producing seed like crazy right now. So it's going to be an interesting year next year. There's going to be a lot of things pop up people didn't expect.
I have several clumps of lemongrass in my yard. I started a few years ago from seed, and oh my gosh, the seed came right up. It grew just great. By the end of summer, lemongrass looks kind of similar to Kogan grass, but it is like chest high. It gets really big. Has not frozen back this winter yet.
The FDAX says that it can flower throughout the year and in response to disturbance. So I take that as frost or mowing it, or if it burns or something. So if you're messing with it, a lot of times when we've seen it, it's just free growing. Nobody really does anything about it. And when you spray it with herbicide, that probably inhibits it flowering a little bit. So I suppose that's why that happens.
Yes, for anybody who has a problem with Kogan grass, University of Florida has a fact sheet, and they did research on it, and they found a 3-year step-by-step program that you could follow that will get your Kogan grass as under control as it's going to get. And it's a combination of cutting it, burning it, tilling it, and I think that's it. But
And
you have to
Roundup.
take those and spraying it. And you have to take those steps at the right time of year. So it tells you what to do in the spring, the summer, the fall, the winter. And if you follow it, you won't get rid of it. Sorry. And it's not going to go away. But you will get it under control as best you can.
It's like bamboo. Bamboo is a nightmare to get rid of.
Oh yeah.
Especially when
Stuff.
you find out that there's a 2,500 pound root ball underneath your building or something. A friend of mine did that. They had to come in and take it out with a front end loader because it was just such a mammoth mess underneath there. And so it surprised him. He planted it next to his garage, and it went berserk. So
Yeah. Okay, Lily's thinking about growing gingers. Lynn says with those shampoo gingers, just don't put it right on the fence line. That way it's not going to creep into the neighbor's yard. And here we go. Teresa found the fact sheet on biology and control of Kogan grass for anybody who has a problem with that. A lot of times with invasives, we talk about control and management. We don't talk in terms of totally getting rid of it. Because with some things, it's really not going to work. So as we head down the back side of our hour today, if anybody has any additional questions, any topics you want us to go ahead and share our thoughts on, specific questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box. And I should see them, and we will do our best to respond to them. But in the meantime, for anybody who wants to get in touch with me, there is my email. For anybody who wants to get in touch with Colby, there is his email. And then also there is his link tree, which has links to all his different social media, website, things like that. If you ever want to get in touch with Bernie, he's here on Thursdays. You can give him a call. There's the office phone number. If you call, Teresa will probably answer, and she can put you through to Bernie. So, see, Teresa really does exist, and so does Bernie. Well, you can see Bernie every week. You don't see Teresa, but trust me, she's here in the background. So if you want to get in touch with us, go ahead. And there's our phone number. And Cindy says the reports that were on the news was for Tampa Bay, saying how flammable it was, and maybe that's because we have been in a severe drought. Cindy, if you're talking about Kogan grass, it is flammable. It is very oily, and people thought, well, if we just burn it, that'll kill it, and it'll go away, and it'll never come back. Burning it just makes it angry, and it will grow back. But it will, as it burns very, very hot. It's very oily, can cause a bad fire. If you have Kogan grass and trees, it will get hot enough where it kills pine trees, kills all the trees. So don't go out there just trying to burn Kogan grass willy-nilly, because
it's incredibly fire adapted.
Yes, fire doesn't really bother it.
It's like, oh, you killed all my leaves? Well, I got more leaves. I'll just make more. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll come right back. Kogan grass is tough.
Yeah, I've been out on looking at the remnants after a prescribed burn. No green. You're looking at no green, except for Kogan grass. It's always bad. But if you in the few the 5 or 6 days it's been since they burned, you come back and it's just little green sprouts here and there, and then 2 or 3 weeks you have a couple other plants, but then you just go, well, there's a mat of Kogan grass back there again. It grows very quickly, and it's very, very, very difficult to kill.
I was thinking about those olives. Wonder what variety it is that has the little garlic piece in the middle.
I don't know. Wonder if you can grow them that way. I want to know, can you grow them that automatically has the little pimento inside of it? And does anybody know what that pimento is?
I just
It's a
thought
pepper.
they came that way.
It's a pepper. It's a not green pepper, obviously, because it's red, but pimentos are a type of pepper.
A crazy hybrid you're talking about there.
You know, if you can do that, maybe you could grow bananas that had strawberries in them also. I like bananas and strawberries. We could get some of these things put together that would really be commercially successful.
Yeah, yeah. I was incorrect. Apparently, Cindy does not have a problem with Kogan grass. She's just saying about how they said on the news, it may be a bad time or year or spring for forest fires. All depends on where you live. We've been getting decent amounts of rain here. I know going back a number of months to like late summer or fall, over around the greater Tampa Bay area, no rain. Over there in West Palm Beach, huge amounts of rain. So even in one state, it varies a lot, all depending on exactly where you live.
You know, this thing about the green plants that burn, if you're from up north, green plants up north don't burn. But green plants in Florida, in order to keep from losing so much moisture, cover the leaves with a waxy coating. And all these plants with the waxy coating will burn. So where you burn a field up north and only the dead material burns, you burn a field in Florida, and if it's a field with a lot of waxy plants, everything goes. So it's something that people that aren't native are not aware of it, and so many of the green plants are actually waxy coated, and that burns. And the Kogan grass is one of those plants that has enough oil. It burns really good. Those things,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be dry. It doesn't have to be a drought. But the thing about it is you get a drought, and now not only the waxy plants, but everything is capable of burning. About 20 years ago, we had one of those situations where there were mammoth wildfires in Florida. We had airplanes in doing water drops, and the company that was doing that was actually headquartered in Florida. So I was working at the airport at the time, and we had a couple of these really large helicopters and a couple of old military airplanes that had been converted to tankers, and they were out flying all day long trying to keep the state from burning. So it is a problem. There are plants here that just want to take off and really go. And if you don't allow the dry material to accumulate, if you can burn fairly often, the fires aren't a problem. And most of the plants in forest area are adapted to fire. So a lot of them only reproduce if there's a fire. So, but once it gets out of hand where you don't have fires, you build up a big supply of material that burns, and then you have a fire. Instead of just doing minor damage, it does some serious damage and things that aren't going to recover. And secondly, because people have built in these environments because they're beautiful environments and they like living there, are at risk because once the fire starts, it doesn't know where to stop.
Yep.
It puts us like California if we really have a dry period and then a fire.
Yeah, it can be dangerous, and it's usually a problem in the spring. So like I said, here in Hernando County in West Central Florida, we've been getting, my guess is technically above average rainfall. But if we get really, really dry this spring, that may all change and be different. Sally said she had about an acre burn, and it came back all Kogan grass. So the burning got rid of all the competition for the Kogan grass, and the Kogan grass is very, very happy for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Cindy said that with Kogan grass, it's become invasive there. And going back to olives, Anne Marie says that's an Italian olive, and it can't be grown here, sadly, with the garlic they stuff, commonly grown in Italy. I like the garlic stuffed one. Pimento is a type of pepper. So that little red pimento, and you're wondering, what the heck is a pimento? Can I grow pimentos? Technically, you can. It's a specific type of pepper that turns. It's not hot. It's not a hot pepper. It's a sweet pepper, and they turn red when they're ripe. So I guess we're going to work on wrapping it up here for this morning. If anybody has any burning last minute questions, comments, anything else, please be sure to put them in the chat. And who's going to be here next week? Am I going to be here next week? I don't know. Hey, yes, I will be.
I should have to look at the calendar.
We're all pulling up our calendars right now. Where am I going to be next week? I don't know. Like I said, busy time of year, a lot of different things going on. I will be here next week. After that, I'm not positive. Robin, you are very welcome. Always feel free to type in the comments a question, a comment, a thumbs up, something, anything. And the last minute questions all come rolling in. Look at this. They wait till the very last minute here. Okay, very quickly. Robolini palms need trimming badly. Can I do it now? You may want to wait just a few weeks till the beginning of March because Robolinis are freeze sensitive. But very, very soon, you can trim them back. If all the fronds froze, you can take them all off. It's going to take all summer for it to grow back. But with any kind of palms, normally only take off the leaves that are like 75, 80, 90% dead. Don't be cutting off a bunch of the green ones, just the dead ones.
And be extremely careful. Robolinis are a terrible, terrible palm in that have a lot of hateful spikes on them, and wear long leather gloves. Be very, very careful that if you're cutting overhead, that they don't fall on you. They will stab you very bad.
And Teresa says the call of the week is digger bees. So spring is coming in upon us. All those different insects are going to be making their emergence. Digger bees, Chidera bugs are out. The tussock moth caterpillars are not out yet. The great big grasshoppers will be coming out beginning of March. So we got a few weeks, although I have heard some people have seen them. So all those things are all coming out now. And Sally asks, can you trim the red maples now? If you need to, you can. Now's a good time of year because they're just leafing out with the new leaves and everything now. Jennifer, I assume that you signed up for my class on Barbados cherries. And the answer to this question is, I don't know, but I will know in about 2 or 3 hours once I get out there to the nursery to pick them up this afternoon. They should be normally plants when I get them from the nursery that we deal with, they're a couple inches tall and they're in plugs, but we go ahead and pot them up in little 3-inch pots. So they'll be anywhere from 4 to 6 inches high, but I'm not sure. I haven't picked them up yet. So I'll find out in just a little bit.
What's the diameter of the fruit?
Bigger than a BB, smaller than a golf ball. Let me think different little round things.
Marbles.
Somewhere between an M&M and a marble, I would guess.
So they're slightly smaller than regular cherries.
Yes, they're smaller than like regular cherries you would buy at the grocery store, and they are tart. Another name for them is acerola, and they're very high in vitamin C and tend to be very sour. There's a lot of different ways you can use them, and they are very, very healthy for you. And they will grow here. Those sweet cherries grow up north. When you buy them at the grocery store, where do they come from? California, Michigan, places like that.
Washington.
They don't grow in Florida.
Yeah.
They ain't here. And for Sally's question about red maples, Teresa tossed a link to the University of Florida fact sheet on them. Gives you all the basics on red maples. They really don't need much pruning. If there's a dead branch, cut it off. As they grow bigger, you're going to have to limb up the lowest branches so they don't poke you in the head or poke you in the eye when you're cutting the grass. Things like that. Other than that, not much maintenance. Easy to care for. And guys, with that, I think it's a wrap. Hey, we're showing some pretty good time management skills here today. So, as always, thank you so much for all your questions. Thank you so much for all the kind comments. If you're watching the recording of this, feel free to get a hold of us. I've already shown you all of our emails and link trees and our phone number and the office, and we are so easy to get a hold of. It's not even funny. And we're here on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're all over the place. David asks, how long before your video is posted? Oh, if you're talking about the video for Barbados cherries, it will be probably a couple days to a week or so after the class, because somebody, John Cancel with county government, has to actually do the video editing. And we will have him on here really soon, both him and Dominique as guests. Want everybody to see them. They help us a lot behind the scenes. And David, you're very welcome. Anne Marie, great seeing you like always. Oh, and David, if you're today's recording of a live broadcast, as soon as I shut up and hit end stream up here, within seconds, it will be available on Facebook and YouTube and everywhere that we broadcast to. So all I have to do is finally wrap it up here, and you can have the recording and you can catch what you missed at the very beginning. So, hey, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for joining us. As always, this is really great. I have a good time doing this. And we should all be back again next Thursday at 10 a.m. to answer all your lawn and garden questions here on the Virtual Plant Clinic. So until then, see ya. Thanks.